Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. Good to have you all here. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde Story Corner once again. Okay, so, yeah, it's been kind of a busy week and everything like that. Yes, with everything going on out there. Shall we check and see who's in the chat room? Let's do that. Yeah, okay. So let's see. We have Donald, we have Veronica, Marshall, and Richard. Richard, who does our music for us. That's right. Yeah, Richard Ruttenberg, who does two of the pieces of music that we use for our lead-in, and is very kind to have given us permission to do that, and has worked with us on a number of projects. Yeah, a number of projects. Yeah, so very glad to have him. Let's see, we have I said Marshall, Kelsey Lynn, and Miriam. Good to have you all here, and more coming. Yeah, of course, more coming, and there are some people in the background who are watching. So, okay, so we are continuing to read from the book, the Tales of Rabbi Nachman. This song, that's the title. Yeah, I know. Okay, so this story, not song, it's a story. See, Richard's got me off track now. So Shlomo has just joined us, Shlomo and Shoshi. So the title. Oh yeah, yes, the title. The title of the story we were left off at was The King's Son and the Son of the Maid. So we will be continuing on with that one this evening. So okay, well, yes, today was Holocaust Remembrance Day, and yes, with things going on today, we really weren't able to do anything, but we still remember the 6 million plus. Okay, so let us get you on your camera. There I am. Okay. So, we are going to continue on with our story from last week. And what was the story's name again? You would ask me that, wouldn't you? The King's Son and the Son of the Maid. Thank you very much. Okay, so, I understand your wife is not feeling well. That's true. My wife does have the flu, and she is homesick. You're very sorry to hear that. Well, I appreciate that. So what does she have? Well, she has the flu. Well, which type of flu does she have? Which type of flu? You mean type A or type B? No, I mean, does she have the type where, oh, I feel so bad, my body aches so bad, or does she have the other kind? The better kind? The better kind? Yeah, the better kind, Better get the bucket. Blah, blah, blah. That kind. That was gross. Well, I know, but I do that for the little boys, The little boys, they like gross things, so, I like to play to my audience. So, anyway. So, let us continue on with our story tonight. The story, let us back up a little bit to remember, or to remind you of where we were. Okay, remember, this is the two boys who, when they were born, the midwife switched the babies. She gave the king's baby to the maid in waiting, and she gave the maid in waiting's baby to the king. Well, actually, the queen, but the king anyway. Okay, so the supposed father of the other son understood that he was being vexed because of the rumor about the exchange. And he told his supposed son the whole story. I have great pity for you, whoever you are, he concluded. If you are really my son, how can I help feeling sorry for you? And if you are not my son, but the son of the king, you are all the more to be pitied, for the false king will stop at nothing to get rid of you. God forbid. You must flee from this place. Now, this upset the youth greatly, which you can imagine they probably would, huh? But the new king continued to inflict so many hardships upon him that at last he decided to go into exile. His foster father gave him a considerable sum of money, and he departed. The youth was very upset about being driven from his country for no reason. He considered his situation. What have I done to deserve exile? If I am the king's son, I certainly should not be treated like this. And if I am not the king's son, I have done no evil. And there is no reason for me to be cast out. In his bitterness, he took to drinking and frequenting brothels, desiring nothing more than to spend his time gratifying his desires. And that is where we left off last week. And now we pick up. Meanwhile, the new king governed the land firmly. Whenever he heard of people who were gossiping about the rumored exchange of the infants, he punished them severely and vengefully. He ruled by force and might. One day, the false king went hunting with his court. They came upon a delightful spot by the river and paused there to rest. The king, too, lay down to rest. And thoughts of the other son whom he had unfairly driven out came into his mind. Whoever the other was, he had been wronged. If he was really the prince, was it not bad enough that he had been exchanged? Did he have to be exiled as well? And if he was not the king's son, there was also no reason for him to have been banished, for he had done nothing wrong. The king pondered and regretted his sin and the wicked thing he had done, but he could not make up his mind what to do about it. As there was nobody with whom he could discuss the matter, he became very uneasy. He told his officers that he wished to return home, for he had no more heart for sport. However, when he was back in the palace, he busied himself with his affairs, and the matter slipped from his mind. The banished son continued to do as he pleased and squandered all his money. One day, when he was walking by himself, he lay down to rest and recalled all that had befallen him. "What has God done to me?" he said to himself. "If I am the king's son, it is certainly not right for me to be exiled. And if I am not the king's son, I also do not deserve such a fate." He considered the matter further. On the other hand, if God is really able to exchange a king's son and have him suffer such sorrows, does it make sense for me to believe as I do? Oh my goodness. God forbid, huh? Is it right to do as I have done? You know, all the squandering the money and the drinking and all that stuff. Is it right to do as I have done? He began to regret his evil ways, but after he returned home, he went back to his life of dissipation. Nevertheless, thoughts of regret and repentance continued to disturb him. One night, he dreamed that a fair was going to be held in a certain place. He was to go there and accept the first task offered him, no matter how difficult and menial it seemed to be. The dream made a strong impression on him. Now, generally, when one wakes, such things slip away immediately. But this dream stuck in his mind. Even so, it seemed too difficult for him to carry out. And he returned to his drinking as before. But the dream reoccurred several times, and it weighed heavily upon him. One night, in the dream, a voice said to him, "If you know what's good for you, you'll do as you're told." So, he set out to obey the dream. He gave what was left of his money and his fine clothes to the inn, and, taking for himself the simple dress of a peddler, he left for the fair. He arrived at the place, and the next morning he rose early and went to the fair itself. Quite soon, a merchant tapped him on the shoulders, saying, "Do you want to hire yourself out?" "Yes," he replied. "I have to drive cattle," the merchant went on. "Come and work for me." Because of what he had been told in the dream, the youth did not pause to consider the matter. He agreed at once. The merchant immediately started ordering him around in the manner of a master to his servant. And the youth soon had second thoughts. He was a gentle person, and not suited for such work. And now he would have to drive cattle and tramp on foot alongside the beast. But it was too late for him to change his mind, and the merchant continued ordering him about. He asked his new master, "How can I go along with the animals?" The merchant answered, "There are other drovers looking over my cattle. You will go with them." So he gave him some cattle, and the youth drove them out of the city to the place where the other drovers were gathered. From there, they all moved off together, with the youth among them, driving the animals that they had been assigned to him. The merchant rode among the droves on horseback and treated them roughly. And he was especially cruel to the youth. The youth was terrified of the merchant and feared that he would die on the spot if the merchant struck him even one blow with his stick. He was so soft and gentle that he felt he could not bear it. In this way, they continued, he with his animals and the merchant riding among the drovers. They came to a particular place and picked up a sack of bread that had been left for the drovers, and the merchant distributed the food among them. The youth was also given some of this bread, and he ate it. Well, of course he ate it. What do you think he was going to do with it? Anyway, then they came to a very thick forest. Shortly after they entered it, two of the animals that the youth was driving strayed away. Now, seriously, who drives animals to a forest? I have never heard of such a thing. And I lived in Europe. Okay, I know. Just stick to the story, will you? I mean, it's ridiculous. They drive the animals to the forest. Ah, what craziness, eh? Okay, well, let's just get on with the story. Okay. So they came to the thick forest, and stupidly they decided to drive the animals to the forest. That's not what it says. Okay, shortly after they entered it, two of the animals that the youth was driving strayed away. Are you happy? Yes, I'm happy. Just go on with the story, if you please. The merchant shouted at him, "You dummy, you don't drive animals to the forest." That's not what it says. Will you please read the story? Okay. If that's the way you want it. I think my version's better. I think Rabbi Nachman knew what he was doing. Yeah, I might have to agree with you on that one. Okay, so the merchant shouted at him, and he ran after them to try to catch them. They fled even more, and he pursued them. Soon the cattle drovers could not see one another because the forest was so thick, and the youth was quickly separated from his companions. See, that's why you don't drive animals to the forest. Anyway, the farther he chased the animals, the more they ran away. He chased them on and on, until he came to a very depths of the forest, and there he paused to consider his situation. One way or another I shall die. If I return without the animals, the merchant will kill me. And if I remain here, I shall be eaten by wild beasts. Perhaps even so, I should go back to the merchant. But how can I without the animals? He was so afraid of the merchant that he took up his chase once more, and the animals continued to flee. Well, as you would expect, night fell. He had never before experienced anything like being alone in the night in the depths of the forest. When he heard the wild beasts howling, as they usually do, he decided to climb a tree. He slept there with the wild beast cries sounding in his ears. In the morning, he looked around and saw his cattle standing nearby. He climbed down in order to catch them, but the moment he approached them, they ran away. He pursued them, but again they took flight. On and on he chased the animals, and on they fled. At times, the animals would find some grass to stop to eat. Then he would draw near to them and try to catch them, but they always managed to elude him. He followed them into the deepest part of the forest, where there lived wild animals that had no fear of man. So far away were they from human habitation. Night fell again, as it so often does, and when he heard the wild beasts howling all around him, he became very frightened. He saw a very large tree standing nearby and began climbing it. When he had come up into the tree, he saw a man laying there among the branches. He was frightened, but even so, it relieved him to meet another human being. "Who are you?" he asked. "A man," replied the stranger. "And who are you?" "A man." "Where are you from?" asked the stranger. The youth did not want to tell him the whole story, and so he said only, "I was a drover, and 2 animals that strayed from the herd led me here. But tell me, how did you come to be here?" "My horse brought me here," the man replied. "I went out riding, and when I dismounted in order to rest, the horse wandered off into the forest. I chased him, but he kept running away from me. And that's how I come to be here." Well, the 2 decided to join forces and to remain together always. even when they returned to human habitation. At dawn, they heard a very powerful laugh resounding among the trees. It reverberated through the entire forest. It was so loud that even the trees in which they were sitting shook and trembled. The youth was very frightened. But the man whom he had met in the tree said, "I am no longer afraid of this sound, because I have already spent several nights here. Every night towards dawn, as the darkness draws back, this laughter is heard, and all the trees shake and tremble." The youth became very alarmed and said to his companion, "This place must be inhabited by spirits, for such laughter is never heard in any place where humans live. Who ever heard of a laugh resounding over the whole world?" Then, suddenly, it was day. They looked around and saw the animals of the youth and also the horse of his companion standing nearby. Can you guess what happens next? They climbed down the tree and began their pursuit. The youth after his animals and the other after his horse. The animals again fled before the youth as he ran after them, and the horse similarly eluded his master. Meanwhile, the two wandered far apart from each other. In the course of the chase, the youth found a sack filled with bread. Now, bread is very important in the wilderness. So he took the sack and slung it up on his shoulder before continuing to follow the animals. Of course, because the animals are just going to keep running away from him, okay? On his way, he met a man. He was very frightened at first, but even so was somewhat relieved to meet another human being. The man asked him, "How did you get here?" The youth returned his question, "How did you get here?" The man replied, "I, my fathers, and my forefathers were brought up in this place. But you, how did you ever find your way here? No one from where humans live ever comes here." The youth was very frightened because he realized that this man was not a human being at all. He had said that his forefathers were brought up here, and no one from where humans live came here. But the man of the forest did him no harm, and even was rather friendly. He asked the youth, "What are you doing here?" The youth answered that he was chasing some stray animals. "Stop chasing your sins," said the man. "It is not cattle, but your sins that are leading you on. You have already been punished enough, so stop your pursuit. Come with me, and you will come into your own." The king's true son accompanied him, but he was afraid to talk or ask anything, lest the man open his mouth and devour him. So he followed in silence. And on the way, he met his comrade, who had gone in pursuit of the horse. He warned him with signs. "This is not a human being. Have nothing to do with him." And that is where we are going to pause for the moment. We take our 6-minute break, and then we return to find out what is going to happen to these two men, and who is this person who is not human. Okay, so you stay, and we return in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay. Looks like Miriam and Marshall have been busy in the chat room. The guardians of the chat room. Don't mess with them. Okay. Let us get back to our story. So, chasing a bunch of animals through the forest. How ridiculous. Okay, anyway. So, it's one of these right here. Yes, it is. Okay, so, okay. Yes, I found it. Okay, so here we go again. Okay, the king's true son accompanied him, but he was afraid to talk or ask anything, lest the man open his mouth and devour him. We were past that. Okay. Meanwhile, his comrade had noticed this sack of bread on his shoulder and entreated, "My brother, I have not eaten for several days. Give me some bread." The youth replied, "Here in the wilderness, my own life comes first, and I need the bread for myself." The other continued begging and pleading, "I will give you anything you want for it." The youth answered, "What can you give me in return for bread in the wilderness?" "I will give you my entire self," replied the owner of the horse. "I'll sell myself to you as a bondservant." The youth decided that it was a good bargain, and so he bought the other to be his bondservant for all time. His comrade swore that in exchange for some bread, he would continue to serve him even when they returned to civilization. Imagine that, huh? The only condition was that they would both eat from the sack until it was empty. So the two went on together. both following the man of the forest with the horseman, who was now a servant, following the true son of the king. Having a servant made the journey a little easier for the youth. Whenever he needed to lift or do something, he would command his servant to lift it or to do whatever it was he wanted. They came to a place that was crawling with snakes and scorpions. The youth was very frightened, so much so that he dared speak to the man of the forest. "How will we ever get past this place?" he asked him. "Why don't you also ask how you will be able to enter my house?" the man replied. And he showed them his house, which was suspended in midair. Can you imagine such a thing? They went on with him, and he brought them safely to his house. He gave them food and drink, and then he went away. The king's true son used his servant whenever he needed anything. The servant was very bitter about having sold himself because of a single hour when he had needed bread. Now that he had plenty to eat, but he would be a servant forever. He heaved a great sigh. "What have I come to, that I should be a servant?" "Why are you moaning so much about being a servant?" asked the youth. "What kind of great position did you have before?" The servant answered that he had once been a king. There had been a rumor about his having been exchanged and so forth, as was related before, for this was none other than the son of the serving maid, and he had driven out the other son. After a while, it had occurred to him that he had been unjust, and he regretted it. He kept feeling sorry about the wicked deed that he had committed against the other son. One day he dreamed that the way to right the wrong was to relinquish his kingdom and travel as chance would take him. And in this way, he would be able to make amends. He had not wanted to do this, but the dream recurred time and time again and upset him so much that he decided to obey. He abdicated his throne and wandered about until he finally ended up here. And now he had become a servant. The other youth listened to the whole story in silence, thinking to himself, "I know how to deal with you." In the evening, the man of the forest returned and gave them food and drink, and they spent the night there. Just before the day dawned, They heard the tremendous laugh that made the whole forest tremble. The servant urged the king's son to ask the man of the forest what was going on. So the youth asked him, "What is the great laugh that is heard at dawn?" "That is the sound of day laughing at night," answered the man of the forest. The night asked the day, "What is it that whenever you come, I no longer have a name?" The day bursts out laughing, and the night becomes day. That is the laughter that you hear at dawn. This seemed a great marvel to the king's son, that the day should laugh at the night. But he could not ask any more questions because of the man's amazing answer. With morning, the man of the forest departed again. And during the day, the two companions ate and drank together in the house. When night fell, the man returned, and they ate and drank and spent the night there. At night they heard the sound of wild beasts roaring and making strange noises. The lion roared. No, I don't think my voice is not like it used to be, so I don't roar. I'm not going to roar. Okay, so the lion roared, the leopard howled, and the birds whistled and screeched, each and every beast making its own sound. At first, the two were frightened, and they did not listen to the sound attentively. Eventually, they did begin to listen carefully, and they found that they were listening to a melody. You get that, Richard? Okay, so you go out at night and you listen to the animals and you will get your melody. Okay, so the animals were singing a wonderful song. So marvelously pleasant was this music that the more they listened to it, the more agreeable did it seem, till they felt that all the pleasures in the world could not compare with the pleasure of listening to it. They told each other that they should remain where they were in the forest, for there they had food and drink and this wonderful sweet music that surpassed all the pleasures of the world. The servant urged his master to ask the man of the forest about the music. The youth asked him, and he replied, "The sun makes a garment for the moon. The creatures of the forest are very grateful to the moon, since the dominion of the beast is mainly at night." It's a really good time to have this story, isn't it? We just had Chodesh Tov, eh? Okay, sometimes they have to enter the dwelling places of men, and they cannot do this by day. because the moon does them the great favor of lighting up the night for them. They decided to compose a new song for the moon. Hint, hint, Richard. Hint, hint. Okay. This is the music that you hear. Now, that they knew it was a song, they listened to the music even more intently than before, and were more impressed than ever with its wonderful sweetness. But the man of the forest said to them, "Why do you find this unique? I have an instrument made of leaves and colored things that I inherited from my forefathers, who inherited it from their ancestors. Whenever this instrument is placed on any bird or beast, it immediately begins to play the same wonderful melody." After this, the great laughter was heard again, and it became day. The man of the forest left, and the true son of the king began to look for the instrument. He searched all over the room, but he did not find it. He did not dare go any farther. The two were afraid to ask the men of the forest to lead them to the place where men lived. However, the man himself said that he would direct them to human habitation. Then he took out the instrument of which he had spoken and gave it to the king's true son. "I give you this instrument as a gift," he said. "Now you must know how to master it." The two then asked him, "Which way should we go?" He answered that they must seek out the country called the Foolish Country with the Wise King. They asked him in which direction they should set out to begin asking for this country. He showed them the way with his hand, and then he told the real son of the king, "Go to that country, and there you will come to your greatness." And that, my friends, is where we are going to stop for this evening. We will pick up this story next week and see if they actually get to this kingdom and if they ever actually get out of the woods. Okay, so I want to remind you, almost forgot. We promised that we would do this. Reb Moshe Steinerman, he has written a series of books called the I Love Torah series. And we said that we would show a new book each one of our broadcasts. So, this book is called Newly Born Jew, Noahides and Conversion to Judaism, by the very, very famous Rabbi Moshe Steinerman, our very dear friend. I highly endorse these books, and I hope that you will read them and take what they have to say to heart. Okay, so You do not forget that Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is the Torah study with Rabbi A and Reb Ruin. And then Friday evening at 8 p.m. is Kabbalat Ma'ariv Shabbat. And Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf. And then again on Monday, I be back. So, until the next time, my dear friends, we say, Laila Tov.